From the outside, he looked like an ordinary man, quiet, intelligent, successful, respected by many. But deep inside, he carried a secret struggle that only heaven could see. He had been given countless opportunities throughout his life to turn toward God. A praying mother, a devoted wife, faithful friends, and even moments of near death that shook him. Yet every time mercy approached him, something inside him resisted. It was not hatred. It was not disbelief. It was pride, a quiet, stubborn pride that whispered to him, "You don't need God. You can stand on your own." Padre Pio had never met him physically, but souls have a way of revealing themselves to those who pray deeply. One night, during his long hours before the Blessed Sacrament, Padre Pio felt a sudden weight in his spirit, a coldness, a spiritual distance that did not belong to him. He paused, closed his eyes, and understood. A soul was crying out not for God, but against him. Padre Pio was shown a glimpse of the man's past. There were moments of grace where God tried to break through his hardened heart, a miraculous escape from an accident, the birth of his first child, the death of his father, a stranger's unexpected kindness. Each moment was an invitation, a gentle knocking on the door of his soul. But every time the man pushed it aside, sometimes with a laugh, sometimes with anger, sometimes with the simple excuse, "Not now." Maybe later. Padre Pio felt sorrow, not judgment. He knew that rejecting mercy was rarely dramatic. It was subtle, quiet, almost invisible. A slow, daily turning away, a gradual closing of the heart. The man believed he was rejecting religion, but in truth, he was rejecting the very mercy that could save him. It happened during one of Padre Pio's early morning prayers, long before the sun rose. The monastery was silent, the air cool, and the chapel dimly lit by a small flickering candle. Padre Pio knelt as he always did, absorbed in the presence of God, when suddenly his heart tightened. A strange heaviness filled the room, something spiritual, something urgent. Then the vision opened before him. He saw a vast open space filled with the soft golden light. At the center stood the man he had sensed earlier. The man wasn't surrounded by darkness, nor was he trapped. Instead, he stood with his back to the light, facing a distant emptiness. The light behind him stretched out gently, reaching toward him with warmth and invitation. But each time the light came close, the man stepped forward away from it. Padre Pio watched in sorrow. This wasn't a soul running from God in fear. It was a soul choosing independence, insisting on standing alone. Every step away was small, subtle, almost unconscious. But they were choices, deliberate choices. Around the man, Padre Pio saw moments from his life appearing like soft sparks. A friend who urged him to pray. A moment of guilt after hurting someone. A sudden inspiration to forgive. A quiet tug in his heart during tragedy. Each spark was mercy. Each spark was an invitation. Each spark was God calling softly, "Come back to me." But the man brushed each one aside, with excuses, with pride, with the belief that he didn't need saving. Padre Pio trembled as he understood the message of the vision. A soul is never lost in a single moment. It is lost through thousands of rejected moments of mercy. The vision faded, but the sorrow it left remained deeply carved in Padre Pio's heart. As the years passed, the man's confidence in living without God began to crumble. Illness crept into his body like a silent shadow, draining his strength day by day. He tried to hide it from others, pretending he was still in control. But late at night, when the pain grew sharp and the house fell silent, fear slipped into his heart. He began to sense that something was approaching, something unavoidable, something eternal. In those final weeks, heaven gave him more opportunities than ever before. Small moments that most would overlook became profound invitations from God. A nurse who prayed softly beside his bed. A family member who whispered, "Maybe you should talk to God." Even the quiet of the hospital room seemed to ask him, gently but urgently, to reconsider the choices of his life. But the man, though shaken, remained resistant. Pride was still the unseen chain wrapped tightly around his soul. He told himself he needed no mercy, that he was strong enough to face whatever waited after death. Yet deep inside, he was terrified. Padre Pio, praying miles away, felt the man's spiritual struggle as though it were happening beside him. A wave of coldness washed over him during prayer, and he knew instantly. The man was standing at the threshold of his final chance. Heaven had opened one last door, one final moment of grace before the end. It was not a dramatic moment, no visions, no miracles, no voices, just a quiet, fragile opportunity for the man to whisper even a single word of humility, help. But the man hardened himself again. He closed his heart, pushed the invitation away, and chose to stand alone. And Padre Pio understood with deep sorrow that a soul can approach death surrounded by mercy and still walk away from it. On the night the man was dying, Padre Pio was deep in prayer when a sudden darkness swept over his spirit. It was not the darkness of evil attacking him. It was the darkness of a soul standing at a terrible crossroads. In a moment of spiritual clarity, a vision opened before Padre Pio, more vivid and more heartbreaking than any he had seen before. He saw the man's soul standing before a vast ocean of radiant mercy, so bright, so warm, so overwhelmingly beautiful that even angels trembled before its power. This was God's final offering to him, the last invitation extended at the final breath of life. The ocean shimmered, reaching toward the man like a father longing for a lost child. But the man did not move toward it. Instead, he stepped backward. The ocean of mercy glowed brighter, showing him everything he could be forgiven for, every sin, every failure, every wound he caused, and every wound he suffered. It showed him peace. It showed him healing. It showed him home. But the man's heart, shaped by a lifetime of rejecting grace, remained closed. He felt the pull of mercy, but he also felt the weight of his own pride. And in that one final moment, the moment where eternity touches a soul, he made a choice, a conscious choice, a free choice, a devastating choice. He turned away. As he stepped back, the light dimmed around him, not because it grew weaker, but because he was moving farther from it. Shadows crept in not violently, but naturally, like night falling when a man walks away from the sun. Padre Pio's eyes filled with tears as he whispered, "Lord, he is choosing darkness." And heaven, respecting the freedom God himself gave, honored that choice. When the vision faded, Padre Pio remained kneeling, trembling from the weight of what he had witnessed. He was not shaken by fear, but by a sorrow deeper than words. He understood a truth that many ignore. God's mercy is infinite, but it is never forced. Heaven opens its doors to every soul, even at the final breath, but the soul must make the choice to enter. Padre Pio reflected on what he had seen, the beautiful ocean of mercy, the gentle invitations throughout the man's life, the final radiant offer at the moment of death. Mercy had been everywhere. Mercy had been patient. Mercy had waited. But the man had refused each call, not because God failed him, but because he continually pushed grace away until rejecting mercy became his second nature. With deep sadness, Padre Pio explained to those who sought his guidance that a soul is never lost because God withdraws his love. It is lost because the soul rejects that love again and again until the heart grows cold, hard, and unwilling to receive it. God respects human freedom so completely that he allows even the choice of eternal separation. Yet Padre Pio did not tell this story to instill fear. He told it to awaken hearts, to remind people that mercy is offered every day in small whispers, in moments of guilt, in sudden inspiration, in unexpected kindness. The tragedy is not that mercy is scarce, but that we often ignore it. And so his message remains timeless. Do not wait. Do not postpone grace. When mercy calls, answer.